Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on Spotlight with the Candidates. And today's candidate is Ben Harman. We've got the pleasure of his accompanying us today. And Ben ran for and won the seat of Newberry's Council at Large. And
Newburyport. Yep.
Newburyport, my apologies. I keep getting that wrong. Anyway, um, thank you for joining us here today, Ben.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
Yeah, our pleasure. And in the format of Spotlight on the Candidate, what we asked you was if you would choose two of the articles from the Politician's Creed and that you think one, two, or three that resonate the most with you and your community. And you chose the Article 4, Honesty, Integrity, and Transparency, and Article 6, Engagement.
I did,
Um,
yes.
yeah. Could you talk to me about those? Starting with the first one.
Sure. I think in a certain way these go hand in hand to me. But I'm a local elected official in a nonpartisan race. I have party affiliation. I've been public about that, transparent, if you will. But I think we're uniquely positioned at the local level to reestablish trust in government. I think it is listening recently to some of the stats on people's faith in their elected officials at the federal level has declined precipitously over the past 40 years. And this thing called democracy doesn't work if we don't have the engagement, in Article 6 of the public. And I think the way that we, drive that is through, transparency and integrity. So I'm happy to talk more about, ways that
Mhm.
I try to achieve those things and commit to those principles. But in choosing those for the conversation today, I really was thinking about, the unique perspective that we have at the local level. We get to, see and speak to our constituents on, casual grocery store lines, and public events much more frequently, much more intimately, I think, than most politicians.
And that's a good point. And I mean, a lot of the distrust with governance is at the federal level, as you said. And so, yeah, healing that, fixing that, yeah, politicians such as yourself, candidates such as yourself, who are at the local level, you're in the best position to start to send that healing up through, up through the ballots. Create a stronger sense of honesty, trust, and transparency at the local level, and expect that from the candidates who are running, up ticket and so forth. You set a great example. We've been speaking with you for now several months, so we've got to know you a little bit, and so when I say you set a very example, the you wear your integrity on your sleeve, Ben. It's obvious, and so thank you for that. Um, Engagement, the same thing. It's easy for local politicians to engage because their constituency is right there at hand. And now you've served in office and in the same role, I understand, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What were some of the things you did before to enhance engagements? And is that going to be the status quo going forward? Or do you have any additional ideas along those lines? Things like that.
Yeah. So I'm moving from a ward counselor. Some people call it district. So I represent a section of town to an at-large counselor, meaning that I'll represent the full city. The Being a ward counselor, you are the first phone call for most constituents when they have a need, a concern, feedback, questions. And so being responsive, the simplest thing, answering the email, answering the phone call, taking the time to engage in those, one-to-one ways was really important to me to be consistent on as a ward counselor, and something that I
Mhm.
plan to continue to do at large. Although I won't be the first phone call necessarily, but I will, having served in office, people will know me and sort of the areas that I've focused on, and I hope that they will continue to reach out in those one-to-one ways. I have also hosted public forums around subjects when I see a critical,
Very good.
volume
Very
of
good.
feedback or concern, putting together a forum so that you're bringing experts from the police department, the Department of Public Services, things like that, to meet with constituents and give them an open dialogue with their government, myself as well. So those are just some of the ways. I know others have experimented with office hours. Um, I have not done that, but I've had lots of coffees.
Mhm.
Just not posting up at the coffee shop for an hour and hoping somebody will show up. Kind of a little bit more targeted with the time that I have. This isn't a full time role, so trying to really optimize those engagement opportunities. And
Mhm.
last thing I'll say about engagement that I hope that anybody listening probably is already engaged locally or with their elected officials at whatever level, but it's unfortunate that there isn't more of the community involvement, and people don't necessarily come to the meetings or read the articles covering our work. And so what I really am attempting to do is similar to instilling trust in local government. I'm trying to bring people in, let them make it more accessible for them, experimenting with the time of day and days of week that we, make ourselves available and
Very
host
good.
those
Yeah.
public meetings so that
Mhm.
more people from different walks of life can show up, attend those, and hopefully get a sense of this is my government at work, and I should lean in more, at least in the areas of focus or importance for them.
It sounds like you're leaning towards participatory. I mean,
That's
is that
right.
an option for citizens?
That's right. And
Okay.
we as elected officials, candidates, we walk around and knock on doors for 8 weeks. In my case, every 2 years, and you
Uh-huh.
get a lot of feedback and a lot of engagement through the people that you get to go out because you're going to them.
Hmm.
But then the rest of the time, the expectation is often that they're coming to us. And so I just want to make sure, A, that there is an open invitation for them to do that and that they're aware of the meetings and the opportunities to come to us, but B, that we're also finding ways to be out in the community, identify ourselves, and not necessarily wait for them to come to that council meeting or committee meeting or whatever, but that we're making ourselves available so that people can engage.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Um, and there's a number of priorities that are close to your heart, and housing affordability seems to be one of the top ones. I noticed then in your in your current 2 years, one of the things that you co-sponsored was the affordable dwelling units, ADUs. And I've got to admit, I have not heard that term before. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. We live in an affluent community that 50, 60 years ago was really a blue collar fishing community, boating community. And it's just evolved so much. And as so many places, especially in the state of Massachusetts, have. And so it's something that I'm really focused on because I think the window is closing for us to preserve what affordability remains.
Hmm.
But also we're opening up new innovative things like the ADU lever to try to infuse more options, right? More, widening the spectrum of costs for rent, for
How does that
apartments.
work?
Yeah. So an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. Some
Mhm.
people call them in-law apartments, granny flats.
Okay.
But they are a building that, or a portion of your home. It can be a separate building, or a basement walkout, or an upper floor, that's fully equipped with kitchen, bathroom, etc. So up to building code as an apartment, basically. And what has happened historically, because we have our housing policy, especially at the local level, has been driven and centered around sort of the classic single family home with a nice acre lot and a driveway and a garage. And so the policies and the zoning that we've implemented over, the night, the last century, has boxed out these other options, and so we've made it very difficult. And so the zoning that I passed on ADUs made it a by right option for, within, reasonable conforming structures for somebody to add one of these apartments. And what that does is it allows for intergenerational living. So, if you're
Right.
if you're if you
Hmm.
if you're retired and you have a big house, all of your equity is in that home. You don't want to leave it, but you don't need it. And then you have a young family. If it's maybe your kids, maybe it's someone that who's looking to get their start. You can build yourself a smaller apartment, move there, stay in your home, maintain the equity that you have, and then get some rental income, or have some shared living arrangement with your kids. Likewise, I have a friend here whose children both moved. One is still living at home, and one had to move to Boston because the cost of renting was cheaper there than it is in Newburyport. And she would love to be able to have an option for her kid to be able to stay here. And so,
Hmm.
just as one of those levers, like I said, that would increases rental options and inventory, but also gives some flexibility for homeowners to make use of their property.
Okay. And now this got legalized during your current term, correct?
It yes.
Yeah, very good. Congratulations on that. And
Thank you.
do you when do you expect to have you seen any action on it yet, or when do you expect to see any action?
We have. So this was part of a statewide mandate, the Affordable Homes Act from Governor Healy, and but we then at the local level have to implement the zoning, and we had to sort of create
Okay.
some rules and structure around that, which is what I did. And we have seen an increase in these applications. I think we had 10 this fiscal or this current calendar year. And I think that, as it becomes available and people know about it, now when you're thinking about, adding a garage, you're also going to say, oh, I could put an apartment on top. And so I think we will see an increase. I don't think we expect the volume to be massive here, but as I said, this problem with housing affordability is going to require lots of different approaches. And this is just one that I'm excited that we've adopted early here in Newburyport.
And I guess it goes without saying that um, every house that does that, it increases the value of the house. You
Yeah,
know, yeah,
hypothetically, yes.
it's a good move just in terms of increasing the equity of the home. Okay, and as you said, it can create an additional line of revenue. So
That's
for the
right.
homeowner. So good move, good move. Okay.
And
Um,
the benefit and the pushback, right? It's the people are concerned, oh, you're adding another you know set of humans living in my sort of area where I'm not
mhm.
used to having more people living. But really, this solution that I think once we see it and people get comfortable with it over time, they're actually building one next door to my house.
Okay.
So yes, in my backyard, but I do think it's sort of a minor adjustment to create more housing that maintains the character of the neighborhood truly, because it's not you don't see it. It's not dense
Mhm.
density that's being increased.
I think it'd be fascinating to know to track the number of homes that take advantage of the ADU and get a what whatever the appraisal was before and appraisals afterwards, and just
Yes.
be and so you can point to that and say, look, this is the overall net increase in value for the community.
That's right.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're doing now at the state level here, and I'm excited to focus on in my next term, is how do we make the building and construction of these more easier and more affordable for people, because it's still a big investment to if you're adding a whole net new garage or outbuilding.
The plumbing,
Um,
electricity, and everything. Yeah, that's a good point. Very good.
exactly. So we have the zoning in place, and next we want to try to make it something that feels achievable for people.
Hmm. And speaking of plumbing and infrastructure and stuff like that, that's one of your other big salient points, is
Yeah.
infrastructure. And particularly water and sewer and making things more climate resilient. You guys are right on the border, the um uh
We were bounded by a river and the
yeah.
ocean.
Yeah. So talk to me about that a little bit. Why is that an important concern for you?
Well, I mean, what, if anything, can we all agree on, if not clean drinking water?
Mhm.
And yet, we saw this in the mayoral race in the recent campaign, really getting politicized in a way that I think there was some misinformation or lack of understanding. And and at the same time, I'm encouraged because there were a lot of people paying attention to the problem, and that's that's good, right? That's that
Yes.
engagement that we talked about. Um, so I'm focused on it because we've got aging infrastructure here, and we have exposure to climate change, and our our water supply could hypothetically in a flooding event be completely put offline because of the salt water. So we need to do something. Both the time clock because it's old and the weather clock because it's rising seas is forcing us to address this, but also infrastructure is very, very expensive. And so this is going to impact taxpayers. And so when we think about Article 4, honesty and transparency, I want to make sure that we're bringing the whole community along and understanding why this is important, what the cost is going to be, how we're going to sequence in time different phases of the project so that they are a part of the process and not feeling just the burden of the getting stuck with the bill at the end of the day. And I think this can be, again, to kind of take it back to the local level, this can be a way of building trust because if we are transparent and we bring them along in this process, they feel engaged and a part of it, then it is quite literally of by and for the people.
Hmm. Very good, very good. And the um, you're bounded on the east side with Plum Island, right
Mhm.
on the coast there. Um, have you seen anything with regards to climate affecting that?
Absolutely. So we have several times had to dredge and replace sand along the beaches because it has eroded significantly over the decades. And there's some controversy around our jetties and whether or not they're making that exacerbating that problem with erosion. But the reality is the storms and the nor'easters that we experience here have not on the Newburyport side. So the island is split between our neighbors Newbury and Newburyport, which just makes it more confusing for you. Sorry.
Right.
But we've had some houses that have been taken by the ocean. Um,
Wow.
we
I
did
mean,
in
as
this
in fell into the ocean?
correct.
Okay.
And then we have had some a FEMA experiment that is now done. Unfortunately, I guess didn't work out. But where they were coming to acquire properties for homeowners that would like to
Hmm.
sort of an experiment in managed retreat, if you will. We did have one property that took advantage of that and will now be, green open space in perpetuity. So we certainly this is something that we will continue to as we have been paying attention to and trying to address.
Okay. Very good. And not an easy challenge, though. And
No, I mean even the
infrastructure.
road to get to Plum Island is going to eventually have to be raised, in order to maintain access in some
Wow.
storms.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, infrastructure is it's the elephant in the room everywhere, you know, and it decays, it has to be replaced. And it's almost like politics. No one wants to do it, but it's got to be done.
That's right.
And
That's right. And once you get into politics, you have such a deep appreciation for it. But
yeah.
but there's too few of us who have that understanding and the complexity involved.
And that's the thing. People assume that the politician is well, they make a lot of assumptions. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, and I mean, I got into this myself 2 years ago, and the difference, between my understanding then and now is stunning. I had no idea the complexities, as you say. I don't know how you do it even part-time, Ben. Um,
I
so.
uh, I it, if I fell into this like you 2 years ago, and
Mhm.
what I've found, besides the reward of doing, public service and stepping up and being one of the few, um, is I'm at a phase in my career where I kind of expected I might be coasting, toward the
Mhm.
sort of last chapters of that over the next, 10, 15 years. And um, what's amazing about this experience is I've learned a whole new vocabulary and operating system. I got, from how to
Mhm.
legislate to how to navigate the DPS department to get a problem solved for a resident, and who to call and how to talk to them, has been, I think maybe really good for my brain capacity and just being able to learn a whole new subject matter. So I do encourage folks. You don't have to run for office, but I spend a lot of my time letting people know that you can volunteer for a board or commission. We have all of these opportunities, and once you get just a little closer to the action, you become really valuable to your neighbors and friends because you sort of learn a little bit just by proximity, with a lower level of commitment, just a once a month kind of meeting. And there's such a wide variety of things that people can do, from historic commission to public art to parks commission. Any number of interests you can fulfill, and it's a relatively small commitment, and then you are part of the government, and you know how it works a little bit better, and can kind of spread that information. So
Um,
I'm here to recruit you, as Harvey Milk said.
very, very good. And maybe take another step forward, and eventually, yeah. When you're ready to move on, have someone move into your seat,
It's not
which
so
is part of
daunting.
engagement,
Yes,
Yeah. So, I mean, this is all part of good governance. So, engaging the people in your constituency to learn about, what it is to manage a government, to learn about what it is to manage their region, their district, their town, whatever, Um, all of us should not turn our eyes against that or away from it. Uh, citizens, people, they start from, I just want to live my life, you know, and administrating that doesn't feel like living my life. And so this is why uh, you know, there's a tendency not to get involved in politics, but politics can also be fun, you know,
that's right.
and
We live not far from the New Hampshire border, where their proud motto is "Live free or die." So we have that Yankee spirit of I just want to live my life, right here in Massachusetts as well. But I think it's being a part of something in community. I think, again, we think about those trends, there's faith in government, but there's also just people feeling connected. We have, screens in our hands all the time. And
Mhm.
I think getting involved locally in a community, especially a place like Newburyport, we're small, we're a city, but we're under 20,000 in population. And so it's relatively simple, and people, and you get to meet a few new people along the way. And I think that's a hidden benefit, I think, is that community building, not just government and politics, but just being neighbors.
Okay. And how would you define good governance?
uh I think it's
And I'm going to ask you, how would you define it? I'm going to ask you, how are you going to get from where you're at, unless you're going to say, hey, we're already a good government. Yeah.
no.
From
um
there to that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think good governance is at the same time really simple and really hard to accomplish, in some ways. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The simplicity of it is, being having integrity with what we do, and being transparent about the process, and trying to take each issue on its merits, gather input from your constituents, and vote. I think the way that you feel, based on your understanding, and incorporating the constituent feedback. I mean, I think that is it at its basic level. And then the transparent process that allows people to access you at the and how things are how the sausage is made, if you will. So that they know that that it is open to their input and participation. So I think good governance sounds easy when you think about it in those terms. We can talk more about some of the complexity with your follow-up question.
Yeah. Okay. And so how would you implement it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we have these screens in our hands, but the way
Hmm.
government operates is was invented and constructed long before the digital age. And so, one of the things that I think we have a real opportunity to do here in Newburyport is um, create better um, digital access. So we have a calendar system, and I know how to navigate it. But I often find that one of my best skills is knowing how to get around the city website and find the thing you need, or know about the meeting or the background
Uh-huh.
information. And so that shouldn't be right. People know how to get around the internet, and they should know how to use the city website and both on their mobile devices and on their laptops and other screens in ways that are obvious and simple to navigate. I
So the
think
city website, is that so is that a portal or is it entirely an external interface? And by
it's
portal, I mean that actual members of the city would log in, or is everything on the surface?
it's on the surface. So
Okay.
we are governed by open meeting laws, and that has dictated by the state, and so everything we do is pretty rigid in terms of how when we have to post something, where we have how public it has to be, things like that. So it's all fully accessible, but like I said, the navigation and the sort of intuitiveness of that is not great. The other thing is, people receive their information for better or worse on in fragments and largely on social media, and even that's
Mhm.
in different pockets based on generations. So how do we go get people's attention to let them know what's happening in a more proactive and creative way?
How do you make the community website worth their time to go look at from
That's
time
right.
to time? Yeah. And how do you get it in front of them? So yeah, two challenges there. Making it so it's navigable and then making it so they'll take the time to check it out every day or so. Yeah.
That's right. And I think I was just in an email back and forth with a constituent who has a you know really strong concern around safety crossing toward the elementary school with their kindergartner.
Hmm.
And there was an accident, and thank God everybody's okay. But they're passionate about this issue, and I'm grateful for their engagement. But they were frustrated because they didn't get a response, or the response that they were looking for from the city. I wasn't involved until I ran into them at an advocacy meeting, and so then they followed up with me. And I think this is thinking about governance, taking the time to explain to people how it works, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense on the surface. So what I took this gentleman through was, okay, I think you're asking for a very reasonable thing, and I will go fight for that. I think it's probably something we can accomplish. But I want you to know that I'm not going to be able to have a conversation about that until January 20th, because that's when our new council will be seated. And then we've got to send it to a committee. And then 3 weeks later, this is going to happen. So just kind of taking him through an expectation setting exercise around why and how it all works, so that he stays engaged and feels good in the end of the process, and not more frustrated. So I think some of the good governance is really just stepping back and acknowledging the perspective and the level of understanding of the person that you're talking to, and then sort of helping them to have a greater understanding on how it's going to go, and where they should show up for meetings to speak up, where they should send emails if they're concerned or have other issues. So I think that's another critical thing that we do, and as counselors.
And I think that's a great opportunity that you have in a community the size of Newburyport. You know, um, the further up ticket someone goes, state rep and things like that, it's very hard to do that. So you've got the opportunity. I'm glad you take advantage of it, Ben. And
That's right. And I think that's, again, we think about what we can do at the local level. And I think
mhm.
once you show somebody, because we have the capacity in our, I don't have a constituent services team, it's just me,
Uh,
but we have the capacity to have that connection. And so it's this gentleman, if he's got something he's fighting for at the state level, at least he's going to have a baseline understanding. All right, I remember when I talked to Ben in Newburyport on that local
mhm.
issue. Now maybe I'll ask those questions up front when I'm talking to my state rep. Okay, well, when should I expect this? What's the budget cycle? What's the committee meeting schedule? So just kind of that, hopefully that carries through to those other levels where they do have constituent services. So hopefully they're also working hard on supporting residents and constituents in that way.
Very good. Very good. And it definitely sounds like you have dug deep into this over the last couple of years, few years you've been into it. You definitely understand your role, Ben. And um, so housing affordability, infrastructure, good governance, in your current term, you had supported those items, also, equity and human rights, and the recreation center, you helped, you championed that and so forth. So, are there any other things that your community should look forward to this next term from you?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. One of the areas that I'm very passionate about is the safety of our streets for cyclists, pedestrians, and motorists. We are hopefully, in a transition from kind of being myopically focused on vehicle traffic, now getting a little bit more of a broadened perspective on multimodal transportation options. But like the example I was talking about earlier, even just being able to safely cross the street sometimes in certain hotspots is a challenge, and people fear for safety. So I'm really hoping that I can be a voice for thinking more ahead, right? So local stuff, everybody wants to talk about streets and sidewalks, right? But they're
Right.
talking about asphalt, concrete. In our case, we have granite curbs in a lot of places. So those materials. But
Are the
before
streets
we
wide enough for like a bike lane or something like that, or?
we have a lot of areas where we have the ability, if we to put in bike lanes, but um, thinking a little bit more ahead when we're doing a paving project to say, all right, what if we narrowed the crossing here by putting some bump outs on either side of this intersection, before we just go ahead and mill and overlay more asphalt, taking a pause to then have a
Mhm.
community meeting down at that street and say, where are you seeing problems? You're the ones who live here. You've experienced this every day, and then having a moment to say, what could we do about it? There are lightweight solutions. We can put up those little plastic bollards to separate a bike lane if people are feeling unsafe. So I think I just want to get a philosophical mind shift around when we're spending money on infrastructure above, on the surface level. Let's pause and say, how can we enhance and optimize for the safety of pedestrians and cyclists, in addition to making it smoother for a car to get across?
Very good. Very good.
It's going to
And
be a years long process, I know, but
yeah,
if we don't start kind of infusing that conversation with those considerations now, we'll never get anywhere. So keep my focus on that, in addition to some of the big projects that I know will come before us in this term.
okay. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Well, very good. And I really appreciate your time with us today. Is there anything else you'd like to add? And
No,
before we
just
wrap up?
thank you. I'm so honored to be a part of this organization as an endorsed candidate and elected official, and I, take the politician's creed and its articles really seriously. And it's a great reminder for me as I go about doing the work to check back in on the sort of fundamentals of the whole thing. So, thank you. Thanks for the time today, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
And thank you, Ben. And we at the Oath of Office, we appreciate you, your commitment, and your commitment to your community. And so it's been our pleasure to certify you and endorse you under the badge of the Politician's Creed. For those of you watching today, if you'd like to learn more about Ben, you can visit his site at benharman.org. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.